There's a certain kind of feeling I feel when I change shirts when I'm pre-filming videos. Like, this is my third video I've filmed today, and I'm just wearing a different shirt to pretend I am filming on a different day. Why do I feel like that's necessary? Hello, my name is Elise, and it is officially that time of the month where I wrap up the books that I read last month. That intro was supposed to be a lot smoother than it actually was. In conclusion, this is my March wrap up. I read 9 books in March, which is seeming to be like my average. I think my last wrap up was 9 books, and maybe the one before that, although I'm not positive, but my one before that was definitely 9 books. That is not important. Anyway, in March I read a pretty decent amount of audiobooks and an arc here and there. I'm giving myself points for really reading a diverse set of genres and age groups. Yay for me. And yeah, I guess let's just get straight into it. Alright, so the very first book for March was The Wicker King. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I thought I was gonna totally fall in love with it just based off of the reviews and the books it was compared to, but I don't know, it was hard for me to get into. It's about 2 boys, I think their names are August and Jack, and Jack starts to experience some hallucinations, and they're like, you know, BFFs for life. And yeah, August is like, bro, I'm gonna help you out here, I'm gonna take care of you, and there's some like hinted romance-y things going on, but like kind of not really. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, so Jack is experiencing these hallucinations and August is trying to help him out, but then things get really intense and their reality almost morphs into this fantasy type thing, and it just gets really intense, and it almost becomes like a fantasy book in a way because their lives become ruled by this fictitious character, the Wicker King. And yeah, if that sounds confusing to you, it was very confusing to me at the beginning. I don't think I really understood what was going on until like 60 or 70% in the book, and I kept listening to it because the writing was very interesting and just the concept itself was very interesting, and I wanted to know what was going on, but I just felt like I was confused way longer than I should have been, or at least confused longer than it was enjoyable, if that makes any sense. The last chunk of the book was very emotional. I mean, the whole book was emotional, but the last chunk of the book, like, you really understood the characters and you really got a sense of what was going on, and that part was my favorite. Like, the ending, 5 stars for me, but the beginning, I don't know. I always have mixed feelings of books that are supposed to make you confused, because I know that was like a decision on the author's part, but like also I don't enjoy being confused. So I ended up giving it 3 stars, even though I really liked it by the end, because yeah, the beginning being that confusing was just not very enjoyable, and I feel like maybe if I read it a second time it would be more interesting because I would remember things more because I'd understand how they fit into the story. But the first time around I was just too confused. But I would still recommend the book because by the end it was fantastic, and if you don't mind being a bit confused, like intentionally confused, this is a really good book. Next is Bedazzled, and I was kind of planning on reading this, but like it wasn't really high on my TBR because it's about a guy who's really into cosplay, and that just is not something of interest to me. Like, I don't care about cosplay, so I just didn't think that sounded like an interesting thing in a book for me, but also I saw great reviews of it, so I still want to give it a try. I gave this book 4 stars, but I think it's closer to like 4.5, maybe, and even 5 stars, because this book was so enjoyable. It is about a guy named Raffi, and like I said, he's into cosplay and he does conventions, and it goes back and forth between these 2 timelines. One is current, where he is getting prepared for this cosplay convention, and the past timeline is with his boyfriend. I think his name is, it's either Lucas or Luca, I forgot. But yeah, they're together in the past, but in the future they are, well, not the future, like the present, they're broken up. And the ex-boyfriend is competing at this convention. So there's some tension and some strained friendships and yeah, all that good stuff. I don't know why this book ended up being so good for a subject I just did not care about, but it was fantastic. I read a review that described it as a delight, and I feel like that's such a good way to put it. It's a very light book, but also really serious. That sounds weird. It has a very like funny, lighthearted, genuine tone to the book, and the characters are just beautiful. I loved every single one. They had such unique, distinct personalities, and every single character had their good and bad side. Like, no one was one-sided. Everyone had so many different parts to them. But there are also some really serious themes in the book, and I just love books that can be fun and lighthearted while also tackling some serious issues without feeling like the author is just brushing over them. So I would 100% recommend this book if you like YA LGBT romances, because it was so fun, such a refreshing break from the usual books I read, because yeah, it was just enjoyable. It was, I keep saying lighthearted and fun, but like that's such a good way to describe it. And it was about something I know nothing about, and the author just made me want to know so much about cosplay and crafting, so good for that. You know, I feel like an author is a good author if they make you care about things you previously had no interest in. The next book I read was actually a novella. It's called Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, and it's about two women. They met on a dating app, if I remember correctly, and then they broke up, and then in the novella, they find each other again on the subway, and it's just about them, you know, reconnecting and having some conversations about what went wrong. I read this because a couple people have recommended it to me when I asked for sapphic adult recommendations. I wanted to love it a lot more than I did, but novellas just really aren't my thing. I always try to read novellas in hopes that I'll like them, but I don't know. I like fast-paced books and I like when they're on the shorter end, but I feel like for me, novellas are just a bit too short, like just not enough for me to get a good sense of the characters. And I'm not one for plot, really. I like characters more than plot, but still, I just feel like novellas just aren't enough for me. So I gave this 3 stars. I thought the characters were really wonderful. I loved the narration in the audiobook, but I didn't care too much about what was going on in the book, and I didn't really like the romance too much. I don't really know why. Maybe it was because it was a novella and it was just too sudden for me, because that tends to happen when I read novellas. I'm also a bit notorious for just not liking adult romances. I don't know why that is. I think I like the angsty coming of age element of romance when it comes to young adult books, which you don't really get in adult books. But yeah, I also don't know if this had to do, or if my rating had to do with the fact that this is like book 2.5 in a series. It seems like the novella could have been read by its own, on its own, but yeah, I don't know. I was a little slightly disappointed with that one. Next we have Real, and I gave this book 5 stars. It is about a 13-year-old girl named Charity, so because she's 13, it kind of is that branch between middle grade and young adult, so I think it would be suitable for either of those audiences, but honestly, I feel like it's suitable for adult audience too. I think anyone would enjoy it. But yeah, it is based off of a true story, and this girl, Charity, she is autistic and nonverbal, and it's from the first person point of view of Charity. So even though she's nonverbal, you hear all of her thoughts in the book, and people just treat her differently because she's autistic and because she doesn't speak, and you kind of hear all of her frustration around that in the book, and you see her mistreatment from other people, and it's just such an emotional book. And I really haven't read many books like this, so I was so glad that I ended up getting an arc from NetGalley of it. But yeah, such a great book. I would recommend it for any age group, but I just would like to say, keep in mind it does mention quite a lot of mistreatment and abuse of an autistic girl and other autistic people in the book, because yeah, just keep that in mind if that is something you would prefer not to read. But overall, I thought it was a very well-written, emotional book, and there is an author's note at the end of the book with the person that this book was inspired by. So I thought that was really lovely, and yeah, highly recommend. Again, this was a 5-star read for me. Absolutely wonderful, and I have just realized I totally forgot to write my NetGalley review of it. Oopsies. So the next book is Moxie, and this is a book that I feel like I always see all over the place at bookstores, and I have for years. I don't hear many people talk about it, but I always see it. And the only reason I decided to read it was because I saw it was a Netflix movie, and I did not watch the movie, but it just inspired me to read the book. It is about a girl named Viv, I think, and she's at a school that's very like traditional, but traditional in the sense that it's like super sexist, and all of that just kind of slides because, you know, that's just how it is. And she decides she wants to counteract this sexism because she's not enjoying it and none of the other girls are either. So she gets inspired by her mom's 90s Riot Girl music, which is another reason why I wanted to read the book, because I like Riot Girl music too. Fun fact, the book kept mentioning the band Bikini Kill, and once upon a time I had the opportunity to see the reunion of Bikini Kill live. It was at a festival I was at, and then I got tired and went home before Bikini Kill plays, so yeah, big regrets there. But anyways, she makes posters that are basically encouraging the girls to fight back against the sexism, and it has the slogan "Moxie Girls Fight Back" on there, and a lot of the girls get really inspired by it, and it's like a whole revolution in their school where all of these girls are trying to fight back with all of the unacceptable behavior going on in the school. I enjoyed the book, but I will admit there were parts of the book that were quite slow, and it really took me a while to get through. And I feel like if I wasn't listening to it as an audiobook, I probably would have given up, because, you know, with an audiobook, it forces you to get past the slow parts. But yeah, despite the slow parts, there's one other thing I didn't like. It was the romance. It was very cliche high school romance, but I'm gonna let it slide because it is a high school book. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was a pretty great book. And I was surprised how many social issues that were brought up in the book, because I was just expecting the sexism, but there was just a lot in there. And I was impressed that the author fit so many issues in one book. So points for that. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I just was a little disappointed with the slow parts. I feel like it definitely could have been cut down a bit, but it didn't really deter from my enjoyment of the story. So I would still recommend it if you are interested in books that deal with social issues. The next book is called Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars, and it is a fiction book. It's fiction, but like it's told in the format of a memoir, and it's about an Asian trans girl, and she finds her family in a pleasure district. It's like a found family kind of trope, and yeah, it's about, you know, them interacting, and then a lot of violence happens, and it's about their experience with the violence. That's not a really great summary. I don't really know how to describe this book because it really bended genre in a way that I've never seen before. At first I actually thought it was a memoir, like just told in a very fictitious way. I don't know how to describe it. It's fiction, but like it sounds like a memoir, but then it kind of branches into almost magical realism / fantasy, but it's also realistic. If that sounds confusing, that's because it is a little confusing, but it's really good. The writing was really fantastic, and I actually liked that blend of genres, but it's just really hard for me to describe what was going on in the book, mainly because I just was really focused on the characters. I thought they were really great. And I don't usually see trans Asian representation in books, so that was fantastic. But yeah, I know that was like a really short summary and, you know, like a little blurb of my thoughts there, but I would still recommend it, even though that was very not clear, because it was just a really unique book. It was something I have never seen before, and yeah, I know I am lacking better words. I am not articulating this well, but it was a really good book. Next, I read Honey Girl. I'm not going to say too much about this because I actually posted an entire review on my channel. If you want to check that out, I will link it down in the description below if I remember. But yeah, this was my most anticipated release of 2021, and it only got 3 stars from me, unfortunately. It was good, but it just wasn't really what I was expecting. It's great if you're looking for a book that explores mental health, because that was the book's strong point, but the writing really wasn't my thing. It was very repetitive. I just did not like the style at all, and the romance was almost absent in a way, and that's why I picked it up in the first place. So yeah, it was a 3-star read. Check out my review on my channel if you want some more in-depth thoughts from me. Then I read Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. This was so good. It was a memoir about a woman who I have watched her YouTube videos. I cannot remember her last name. I know her first name is Caitlin. But yeah, she makes YouTube videos on her experience of working in, can I call it the death industry? I don't even know what I'd call it. Oh, I read the whole book too. Whatever. Anyways, it's basically a summary of her career, and it's just not a topic I know much about. So yeah, I learned a lot about death and how bodies are prepared, but because it was a memoir, it wasn't just entirely educational facts. It was also about Caitlin's experiences. So I really appreciated that too, and I liked the discussions on emotions and also like disconnect from emotions when dealing with bodies. So I thought that was a really cool book, and if you are interested in death, I would recommend it. Even if you're not interested in death, you'll probably learn something new. So it's a really great book, and the audiobook is narrated by the author, and it was very well done. And then the very last book for the month was The Hunger Games. If you have not heard me blab about it, because I have been blabbing about it quite frequently, I started a book club, there we go. I started a book club called the Rewind Book Club, and we read books from the early 2010s, or at least books that were super popular in that era. And we started with The Hunger Games, and I have not read this book since I was 11 years old, and it ended up still getting 5 stars from me. I was super excited to read this again, except I was a little afraid it wouldn't live up to my memories of it, but actually I enjoyed it even more the second time around. That's all I'm gonna say about it, because I did upload a vlog on this, and I also have an hour-long live show discussion on this on my channel. So yeah, check those out if you want more thoughts, especially my vlog, because I enjoyed making that. But yeah, I'm planning to read the rest of this series in April, because it ended up being so much better than I remembered. And that is the end of this wrap up. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye. It was very good.